Hello, how are you? In this video, I'll be doing something again. I feel like I start every single video like this. You know when the sky background comes out that things are going to get serious, so I'll get into it, right? I answer comments a lot. I think all the time actually, now that I think about it. But there is a person, and I'm so sorry if I butcher your name. They're named Icarus Z. And they were asking me on some ideas on how to create characters or something along those lines, and I started giving them like some tips of what I use, but it's such an extensive topic that I felt like I could make a whole video on it. So basically I'll be designing a character and you'll be coming along with me so that I can give you some ideas on what you can do during your own character creation. So I'll be designing an OC that I've had in my mind for a while now, and he is a celestial being. Celestial beings are a sort of species I have, which honestly they aren't really like my own thing. They're inspired by the giants from the Bible. They're basically the same thing except they are not aggressive. That's the whole thing that differentiates them. And when they turn angry, they crystallize and become something resembling a sort of angel, but a lot more dangerous. So I will show you 3 of these types that I already have. The first one being an anthrophyme. Anthrophyme? I call it anthrophyme, but I don't really know how to pronounce stuff, so I'll just go with it, right? The first one is an anthrophyme, which is a mix of a seraphim with a human, of course. That's the anthro part, right? Anthro of a homo, a person. The second one being Mucus, which is a character that I've been designing for 5 years now, and I think I finally come to term with her design once and for all. I will show you here like an old version of her that clearly shows that I've wanted her to be a celestial being for a while because she used to have the crystal legs. Nowadays, she doesn't have them anymore because I decided to just rip them off like I did with the doctor at some point. But we will not get into him at this point. So next one being the president, which yes, he is in fact also a celestial being, but you will not know what his celestial form is like because, I don't know, I just don't want to tell you, I guess. So for him, the character that I'm designing right now, I had 2 ideas in mind, 2 main ones, right? Because whenever I'm creating a character, I like to think of their silhouette first, of what their shape will look like to make them identifiable, and also some object that I can use as inspiration. For example, Selena, I use roses while jealous. He has his tattoos and stuff, right? Like his whole thing is another character creation type. And for him, I knew that I wanted to use chains and gold in general. So I just grabbed my little sketchbook and I sketched out the chains and his golden hair because I had the idea for the hair already, which I got from Love and Deep Space because it's very much inspired by Zane's hair, but we will not get into that. Not now. I need to stop. And after that, I decided to draw like the symbol for the type of angel that he's a part of in the hierarchy. I guess I can get into that, right? I'm following the hierarchy of angels, the angel choir, for the celestial beings, because if the angels have that sort of stuff and they're half angels, so they might as well have the same thing, right? So they're not all just, I don't know, the same angel, I guess. He is part of the powers of the second triad of angels. So I knew that he was going to have like, whenever his body crystallizes, like he would resemble a sort of armor and he'd have a sword. The sword is very much inspired by the sword that guards the Garden of Eden, which doesn't really make sense because I feel like the cherubims should have those, but at the same time, I guess it does make sense because in the story, yes, in the Bible it says the cherubims, is it cherubims or cherubims? I don't even remember. But they guard the garden together with that sword that God sends and whatever God is doing, I guess. And I don't know, I just gave him the sword. So since he has a fire sword, I was like, well, I could give him fire wings, but I had this vision of him just being full of chains. So I asked the community and the community spoke and they chose chain wings. I did say in that post that I could mix both in, and in the end I kinda do that, but I do like chained wings and then add a little bit of fire beneath that like sort of shows through the wings, right? But it's so subtle that the main part is chains. So for his shape, I knew that like in general he was going to be very tall because What I do with the celestial beings is whenever like they're born from a human and an angel, right? They are very tall. For example, the president is the son of Cyrelia Sorrow and a guy that's an angel, right? And he is 7'5". Like he grows a lot because, well, in the Bible, they're the giants, right? And they're also the giants, so the only difference is that they're raised to be normal and not try to murder everyone, so yeah. So he's very tall, but celestial beings, they cannot reproduce, or at least that's what people thought, right? They thought that they just couldn't because there was no other thing like them biologically. So in the end, it was found out that they reproduce asexually by losing limbs. Just like bacteria, they do, what is it, mitosis? Is that what it's called? I don't remember, I think so. So the president has an unfortunate events in his life where he loses parts of his body, and those parts just start mutating into children, which makes him so happy. You can just imagine how happy he is, but he is fine with it. He likes his kids, of course. He's happy afterwards. At first he was horrified, but sure. So he finds out that like he has kids. He has the ability to have kids, right? These kids from the celestial being, they are shorter in size. They don't grow as much as like the first version. The first generation. The first version, the fuck am I talking about? They don't grow as much like the first generation of celestial beings, but they're still tall. Like his two daughters, the oldest and the youngest, they're 5'7", 5'8", around that size. And this guy that I'm making, he is a part of the first generation. He is the son of a person and an angel, so he is almost as tall as the president. Not as much, because we're gonna have some size difference, I guess, in some way. He would be like around Autumn's size, like 6'8", 6'10", 11, I don't know. I don't know how feet work, I speak in meters, but sure, we try. I don't know the feet system. Y'all foot addicted people, you all need to know some metric system or something. So he is a powers type of angel, part of the second triad, and I decided to name his type an Anthronia, which is a mix of harmonia, right? Harmony. And anthro, because people, right? All of them have a mix of anthro. I know that you quiz, look, you will hear me turn the paper now because I don't know stuff by memory. She is an Anthroxia because I was reading somewhere about the virtues type. Also, I didn't even mention, she is a virtues type of angel, so that's something. And it mentioned something along those lines. I don't remember. I think it was Anroxia? Inroxia? I don't know. I don't remember the exact word, but it had some sort of something like that. You know that whenever I like creating OCs, I like mixing words together to make stuff more unique. So, after all of that, I had him, right, in his design. I wanted his legs to be the main focus because since he is part of the first generation of celestial beings, he is going to be very tall and he's going to have very long legs. So I wanted like to make his legs very bulky. And that's what I did. His upper part is like normal armor stuff, and then his bottom part's just very like prominent. So that's cool. And for I had like his hair, his body at that point, like his shapes figured out. So I was like, well, what do I do for like his face, which people would want to see, right? I don't think that you really want to know about other stuff. I don't know. People like looking at the faces of characters you draw more so than everything else. Which is honestly kind of a shame, but sure, to each their own. So, for his face, I wanted to give him very sharp features because since he is like a warrior, I knew that he'd have to like be strong appearing despite him being very skinny and long. So I gave him a very sharp, pointy eyes and very arched eyebrows. Also to differentiate a bit from the president, because the president also has sharp features and arched eyebrows, but his are higher up because he sort of resembles Aurelia, right, which is his mom. I don't know. For this, it was kind of complicated because I knew that I wanted him to be very golden, like in general, but also the chains would also be golden, so lots of shading. and I didn't want to do all of that, but I would have to. I suffered, of course, because I always do. At this point, I'm realizing that I am a masochist, right? With each video, I just realize more and more. I don't know what my issue is, I don't know why I like suffering so much, but I knew that I wanted him to be crystallized, right? And it has been 2 years since I've last drawn these, which was the old version of the Anthrophym. And at this point they have been redesigned. You saw it at the beginning. Now they're very, very, very tall and kind of scary looking. Even back then they were kind of scary looking. Like I knew what I was going for, but I haven't drawn like crystals in 2 years, and I had to rewatch an old video of mine of how I did the first image that you see on top as a reference that I use. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm sorry, I'm kinda out of it. And I rewatched my own speed paint, right? My own time-lapse. Was it a time-lapse or was it a speed paint? I think it was a time-lapse. I watched my old time-lapse of how I did the first image that I use as a reference. That's on top somewhere. I don't know if it's at this point in the video or later on. And even after watching it, I wasn't really able to achieve the same look. And I don't know why. Like, I did cut some parts off because it's a very repetitive process, but I overpainted this whole thing and added a bunch of overlays and added a bunch of multiply on so many levels and so many different colors, because shading yellow is horrible, because if you use a desaturated yellow color, it doesn't look good, and if you use a saturated yellow color, it just looks brighter and odd. So you have to like go for warmer tones like oranges and reds. But then I used those, and then it looked too red. So I was going back and forth, and I added some desaturated yellows here and there just to add some reflectiveness and some other stuff, and it just was looking really weird. Then I added a bunch of overlays, and then it just looked too bright and white. So I had to overpaint the whole thing and add a bunch of shapes. If I wanted this to be easier, I could make a brush that like does the crystals, but then I'd have to draw all of that and figure out how to make like to change sizes and varieties and spread around and stuff like that, and it just would take a lot of effort, and I don't want to do that because that requires my brain to function and mine does not. So yeah, if I were to recommend you to create your own OC, I would focus a lot on the silhouette first. It's like if you are going for a story, then you'd have to keep in mind like the sort of story you have to figure out the type of shape. Mine has a lot of battle and action in it, so I knew that like I would use sharper shapes for him specifically, since it matches his purpose. He fights, right, and he's a warrior, so keeping that in mind, I would also apply that to his features. And overall, I don't know, it's kind of complicated. I use objects as well to like represent them. Selena, for example, has roses, as I mentioned before, which, other than being part of her story, because those roses, the rose crown she wears is given to her by her biological father before she is abandoned, in quotes, and she keeps wearing it, which gives like a very calm feeling to her, because she's very nonchalant overall and like calm and sort of detached, right? She's a very calm person in general. Well, calm is not the word that I'm looking for. I know that, but I don't have another word for it. And there are more ways that you can add that to characters. For example, as I mentioned, Jealous and Autumn would be a good example of this type, where I add like body marks to them to express story. For example, Jealous has his face half carbonized, and he has a bunch of tattoos that represent his life journey with religion and being a trans man and whatnot, while Autumn has a very self-deprecating personality, and he tattoos a lot of self-deprecating words on him. And he doesn't have any imagery tattooed on him because he is a musician and he uses words a lot, which would be more meaningful to him than images in itself. And he also has a scar that also goes back to his backstory. I love just scarring my OCs, I guess. Cave, for example, is filled with them because, you know, he is passed with the illegal deeds and a lot of other stuff because he dies at some point, right? It's a lot of stuff like that, giving them unique marks to them or unique shapes and unique objects. That's what I would tell you. That is my advice for creating OCs. And if you want more info, I used to get very inspired to create my OCs by an artist named Parallel. I don't know how they like their name pronounced, I forgot it. It's Zero Lel. Anyways, also, another tangent, he is a secondary character, so I didn't have to focus on making his design all that crazy and unique and whatnot. Sure, he still is kind of unique, but he doesn't have like such a major like design because he is a background character. In the story of Zillion, his purpose isn't all that big. He has like a purpose, but he's more so just, I wouldn't know how to say it, like a reminder of change, sorta, that stuff doesn't always stay the same. I don't know, it's complicated to explain it. I still don't know how I'm going to show the story to you, so like you wouldn't know. Right? I don't know why I even do any of this since I'm not showing the story, and I still don't know how I'm going to show this story. I don't know, at some point I will have to have a talk with the community of how I am going to pull off any of this storytelling and whatnot, so I don't know. Also, I didn't show his normal version, like the celestial beings, they crystallize, right? They sort of transform into these things, but they look like a normal human whenever they're not in this state of crystallization. I didn't show his version because he just looks like some random guy, and he's an artist, he paints, because I've been meaning to have an OC that paints for a while now, and now I finally have it. Like, Selena draws here and there, she does illustrations because she uses that to like plan out her stuff, like music videos and her music in general and whatnot. She has lots of artistic hobbies, but I wanted him to like actually paint. So I finally have one. Now I have him as a painter, Yuko as a seamstress, and Selena being Selena, and Jealous being it Yotoda guy. I'm sorry. He likes cars. Anyways. Here is the finished result of this guy that we created here. Thanks to the community for helping me out with the wings, and I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.